man. I don't know. I don't know if we can be friends anymore, Adam, because 2 weeks ago, I warned you, man. I gave you a massive warning. I said, keep your filthy hands off Dylan Brown. And then what happens? You and your whangarei connection, you steal them from me, man. Like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, it was breaking news yesterday over here in Australia.
And breaking my heart at the same time, man.
And breaking your heart and breaking Mushroomy Parramatta fans' heart as well. But again, Goran, I think, when you think about, I guess, the halves that we have in the competition, and we look through most teams, the best halves are running around for the Broncos, who are all, 36? Is that being kind? Adam Reynolds, Ben Hunt, Daly Cherry Evans are some of the oldest halves in the competition in 2 years' time. Where do you reckon they're going to be? So I think, Dylan Brown is young. He's exciting. He brings experience. I think it's an exciting opportunity for him to fall into a style of football that can suit his footy. But it does break the hearts of a lot of fans like yourself. And yes, you did say keep your hands off him. I don't know if the whangarei connection got him over the line, to be honest.
Oh, now you're being modest, mate. Be honest. How big a part did you play in getting him across the line?
I just flicked him a message. That's all. I just flicked him a message.
And in that message, it was whangarei connection.
It was surely. That's all it was. But let's be real honest. I'm going. He was still signed to Parramatta for a long time there. I think it was 2031 or something. So to be able to get him out of his contract, you had to offer him a big contract deal. And we all say now it's a huge deal. The game is only getting bigger and better. The money and the opportunities that it's creating is only going to be more. And in 2 years' time, or when the new agreements come in, everyone's going to be asking for starting price at $1 million. PNG's coming into the competition. There's talk about obviously another New Zealand team whenever that comes, Western Australia. To get players to PNG, how much do you reckon that's going to cost?
Yeah, it's going to be overs, mate. Nobody's going there for market value. It's going to be, you have to pay more than what somebody is worth to get them to that PNG franchise. There's no doubt about that, man.
So I think, it's a big deal. Everyone's saying that. Of course, it's a big deal. It's 10 years. It's setting Dylan up for life and life after football as well. But when the new bargaining agreement comes in, all the rights come through, every player is going to be asking for more than what they are. But that's just how the game is. The game creates this, and at the same time, you're only as much. And I've said this a lot of times. You're only worth as much as the club wants to pay you. And you can't say, Dylan, you're being greedy or there's no loyalty in the game. I don't know when there was loyalty in the game, because you say someone gets injured in the game, before you know it, they're knocking you on the shoulder saying, hey, we don't want you anymore. And I feel like the game's only getting bigger, stronger, faster. People are getting more mobile. You're one injury away from either not playing footy or having a season on the sideline. So you've got to do the right thing by yourself. And also, obviously, there's pressure outside of the game as well from the public and everyone else.
Yeah, I know. There are lots of external, internal pressures that players like yourself and others would have faced throughout your career and theirs. But look, I don't begrudge Dylan for the move that he's made. I really don't. I love him as a player. I would have loved him even more had he stayed at the Eels. And the way that the club is heading at the moment, I really do not know where they're going. Outside of securing Mitchell Moses on a long-term deal, it's left them in a little bit of a sticky spot, because they let players like Blaze Talangi with what appears to be huge potential. Sure, he looks like he can't catch a high ball, but maybe you play him in the centres or you play him in the six next to Mitch Moses. But that's been and gone. The opportunity is lost. He's off to the Panthers. Another young talent was Ethan Sanders, and he took up an option to go to the Canberra Raiders. So while I understand what you're saying and all the stuff about, well, look, loyalty doesn't mean anything because the club isn't loyal to the players, and sometimes the players, they aren't loyal to the clubs either. But it has really left them in a bit of a bind, because outside of Ronald Volkman, who have they got going forward? And they're going to have to make a play for somebody like a Lockie Galvin, who I think is still on contract and through to next year at the West Tigers. And then there's no guarantee that you get him either. Yeah, you've probably got a war chest because of the money that Dylan Brown leaves behind. But with Lockie Galvin, I feel as though I would be really intrigued to stick around at the Tigers now. I know that Benji Marshall is unproven as a head coach, but geez, he's got runs on the board when it comes to quality in the halves. And if you're a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid and you're playing under Benji Marshall and you're getting that expertise, that tutelage day after day, I don't know if I'd turn it down for Jason Riles.
Well, they got good forwards coming through, some good potential. They got Jerome LOOO, who's there as well, who can mentor him and guide him through his NRL career. And when the time's right, the time will be right for him. He will know when that's right to choose whether he stays on or not. But going back to your Parramatta team, Goran, I guess like when you think about the West teams and the competition, Penrith, Parramatta, West Tigers, the biggest breeding ground for talent, I think, in Sydney when it comes to every position. Surely there's someone through the younger grades. I know they're a far way off step to where Dylan is, but there has to be opportunities down there that they've groomed some young kid to be the next superstar. And I know Blaze Talangi got taken, and they said that, but there has to be someone else. Again, it's always going to happen. This is always an issue in the game. You develop your own through the pathways that come through your system. Dylan Lefangara's come through the 15s and all through their pathways. Not every person plays at a club and plays 300 games. There's always going to be opportunities. The game is growing. Dylan's chosen to, I guess, secure his future first and foremost. I think Dylan's got so much more potential to offer, and I think he fits well in that Newcastle Knights system.
We'll talk a little bit about how he fits into the Knights system in a moment, but he hasn't really reached the dizzying heights of, say, 2022 when the Eels, it seems weird to me to even say that they made the grand final 2.5 years ago because they have been really bad since. But ever since that grand final, what has Dylan Brown achieved in blue and gold? And there have been some things worth talking about, really, where he had the groping scandal. The club stood by him despite that, and he was out of the game for a bit. And then last year, and we spoke about this a week or two back, when Mitch Moses was out injured and Dylan was afforded the opportunity to play 7, and he dropped the ball, literally and figuratively out there. And he proved to me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he couldn't play 7. But what you're telling me is in a different system with different players around him, maybe he could be the 7. Like his game is all about running. I don't know if I've seen enough from Dylan Brown to convince me that he could control your Newcastle Knights.
Well, I think, for me looking out where he's come from and then what he may fit into, I think, like I said about the system, I don't think the Newcastle Knights have an actual 7. And this has been the debate over the last couple of years, hasn't it? I think, 7 or 6 combinations in the halves. They play a different style to the Penrith Panthers. The Parramatta Eels, where it's Mitch Moses that kicks. That's how they play. And Dylan Brown on the long side, he takes those wide fours. I don't know, I think I look at the Newcastle Knights, and they don't typically sit people on sides. They try and get them all together and helping each other out. And I think you can go 1-7-6 or 7-1-6 or 6-1-7, which then I feel like you're still in that kind of running position. It just doesn't mean you're fitted into a system where you're the dominant 7. I think teams have systems like that works for players and clubs. But there's clubs that try and work in with the players to their strengths and help with the players around them. I think quality players attract quality players. That's what it does as well. You put players around Kalen Ponga to help him out. You put players around Fletcher Sharp, who's only a young kid coming into first grade, come from fullback to playing wing, and now the Knights are trying to turn him into a 6. I think he's a running 6 as well. You chuck him on with those 3, they're all running players.
Yeah.
So you play them in a structure and a system that fits everyone collectively, and that's how I think the Knights will use him. He's not going to be that go-to 7-person per se that kicks to the corners. If you watch the Newcastle Knights, Kalen Ponga does a lot of those kicking. He's not a 7, he's a 1. So I think they can work him out in a system where it actually suits this game style of football that they all want to play. When you think about their spine, but moving forward, and like I said, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Fletcher Sharp, Kalen Ponga, Dylan Brown, and Phoenix Crossan as your spine. Now we're starting to build combinations. Now you're starting to see Newcastle Knights as more of a threat moving forward, if that makes sense. And you can start attracting good people around them to help them build to where they want to go. And Newcastle Knights have always been in and around it. They just haven't got to that top 4 yet and been able to compete at their high level. Maybe he's the missing piece of the puzzle. But there's going to be pressure. Of course, there's going to be pressure growing. He's coming as a 10-year signed player with all this hype and around the money that he's given. But I don't feel like Dylan Brown's a person that takes notice of what's going around him, to be honest. I feel like he's a pretty carefree, happy-go-lucky player. But when he goes across the line, he tries to do everything for his team. I love his instincts. I love how he plays. He's a good person as well. And I'm sure the Knights will enjoy having him there when the times come. But he's still got a job to do at Parramatta, and that's going to be his focus, I think, for the next year, is to try and do well at Parramatta.
When I think about his focus, man, it's going to be detracted and distracted somewhat this coming weekend when they play the Tigers at CommBank. I remember a long time ago I was playing football, and I was in a relationship with a girl from the women's team, and then I kind of ghosted her over the summer. And by the time I came back to playing first team football, I was booed off the park by my own home fans. And I feel like that's going to be Dylan Brown times 1,000 at CommBank Stadium this weekend, because they wouldn't have enjoyed the circus around his re-signing with the Eels for 2031, the get-out clauses in his contract, which meant that he could test his value on the open market every other year, and then to turn up. And he wasn't the only one. Like, don't get me wrong. He wasn't the only one who didn't perform against the Melbourne Storm, a red-hot Melbourne Storm the other day. Oh, my God, they were devastating. 46-6 at half-time. Like, geez, I wanted to turn the TV off, but I'm a sucker for punishment. But so he doesn't turn up, and in the absence of Mitch Moses again, he doesn't deliver. He's one of many who doesn't deliver. I've got to reinforce that fact. But I think it would leave a very, very sour taste in the mouths of many a Parramatta Eel fan. And to see the very next day, after that massive loss to the Storm, that's when the news drops. That's when the news breaks. It was horrible timing. I know that you probably can't control things like that. It's out of your control. Once it's out, cat's out of the bag. You've got to run with it, right? But oh man, the timing of it was poor. And so yeah, I wonder how he's going to respond at CommBank Stadium. I know if it was me, I would shrink. Yeah, he's a different beast. You said earlier, he's pretty relaxed and casual, doesn't let things faze him. But if you've got 20, 25,000 people in a stadium and they're all baying for blood, he is going to feel that. It's going to affect his performance. It has to, Blairy.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for him to stand up to it then. And again, that's the business they're in. They're professional athletes. They make decisions the way they do. Yes, that the timing's not right. Yes, on the back of hiding from the Melbourne Storm.
Such a bad game.
It'll be, for me, I think this is where the best players stand up. This is where when back's against the wall, where there's a bit of adversity, especially even as a team for Parramatta, if there's a bit of adversity and there's been some conversation about one of our star players that's going to be leaving at the end of the year, I think back to 2024 at the Warriors out in Whanua, Blake making that call pretty early. Yes, there's always going to be fans that are going to be disappointed. I get that because you're so invested in the club
Would you
and in the
agree,
player.
Blairy, that affected his performance? Like, he was kind of in and out from that point, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was in and out. Yeah, definitely. It
Yeah.
actually, but at the same time, I think you have to be good enough to move forward and put that all aside and take on what your job is at present. And I think that's what I said. Like this will be the difference between whether he stands up or just keeps going through what they've already doing at the moment at Parramatta Eels. So it'll be a good reaction on the back of what he needs to do against the West Tigers. The West Tigers, mate, they played a style of football that was upbeat. They threw a few offloads. They were fast. They were intense. They were Benji Marshall style team. So he's not coming up against a team that just got a hiding. This team competed against the Newcastle Knights for most of that game, and we're very unlucky not to win it. So yeah, it's going to be tough. Most definitely it's going to be tough, Goran. Facing a lot of your fans at CommBank and the people that have invested time into and their hard-earned money to support the beautiful game of rugby league, but also Parramatta Eels. But this is the game of rugby league. The game of rugby league create what we have today, and the players are the game. They are the game. So without the players and our fans, we don't have what we have. We don't have this big, well-oiled machine that just keeps ticking over. And he'll be in the spotlight without a doubt. And he'll be all through the media this week and all in the media after the game, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, but should he be in the spotlight? I did a deep dive, sucker for punishment and all, on the Parramatta Eels Facebook, the official page. And clearly the fans are upset. That's an understatement. A number of them were saying, well, maybe they just bench Dylan Brown for the rest of the season. And this is a conversation we've had before. Yep. It's one of my old favourites. It's an old go-to for me, where Wayne Bennett benched Justin Hodges for the remainder of a Brisbane Broncos season when he signed for the Sydney Roosters. But the way I feel about Parramatta's plight at the moment, they can't afford to bench somebody like Dylan Brown. Like, what are you going to do? Cut your nose off to spite your face? It just seems like absurdity. So I think to those people who have said, get rid of Dylan Brown, play him in reserve grade, I think they've got rocks in their head. You've got to utilise the talent that is at your disposal and try and find a way to win. Otherwise, like, what are you going to be doing this season? Like, Jason Riles have just been smashing his head against a brick wall trying to get a result with substandard players. You've got an international quality 6 or 7, depending on which club you're at, in your midst. So use them. I don't care if he's gone to the Newcastle Knights for 10 years. You play Dylan Brown because he's one of your best players.
Definitely, Goran, and you can't, like you said, you can't play him in reserve grade. He is one of their best. He is their best 6. He is their best 6. Don't get us wrong. Like, he is Parramatta's best 6 right now, and if you don't have your best 6 on the field, you're manufacturing something else below him. And our game of rugby league is based on results, and there'll be more pressure not only on Dylan Brown, but it'll end up flipping onto the club, and then they'll be starting. Then the pressure will be recruitment, the pressure will be other players, the pressure will be Mitch Moses, and Mitch Moses hasn't even got on the field yet. So, and then the pressure will be on the coach to be able to build something where he has to try and explain to the fans that, hey, you need to be patient with us. We're building something over the next couple of years, and hopefully you see the results. Then that doesn't last that long in the game of rugby league. It's based on results. And, you ask someone like Benji Marshall, who's been going through the ups and downs of rugby league, that this year is his most important year for sure.
You spoke earlier about the length of the contract, and when he joins the Knights, he'll be 25 years of age, and so 10 years takes him all the way through to 35. And you've got, as you mentioned, guys like Ben Hunt, Adam Reynolds doing wonderful things together. I know it's only one swallow. Does it make a summer? Not sure, but look, they look really good together, didn't they? And Daly Cherry Evans, who the Warriors will come up against this weekend as well. So, I think Dylan has the potential to just get better as he gets older. But we have seen these 10-year contracts, and we've had varying degrees of success with them. Daly Cherry Evans, I think, he's the
Number
guy
one.
that stands out. He's like a beacon, a sore thumb, because that is one hell of an investment. He is absolute quality. The one that probably has I don't know if you'd say it's backfired for North Queensland, but they certainly aren't getting the same kind of quality out of Jason Taumalolo that they were at the beginning of his stint.
Definitely.
Having to manage his minutes and the knees and the body just isn't holding up, and that to me doesn't seem like value for money in the back end. But if you're in the halves, it's nowhere near as the rigours of the game aren't as great as what they are on somebody like JT at the Cowboys, are they?
No, definitely not. And like when you're in the middle, Goran, it's a washing machine. It's a grind. It's consistent. It's over and over again. And there's not too many middle players that have been able to play 300 games and just continue to be the best at what they do. And prime example, Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. From, I guess, the moment he turned up on the big stage to when he finished up in the NRL, nothing really changed. He still gave what he did every single weekend, if not was more, I guess, determined as he got older and more, I guess, that leader style of footballer. And it's been, I guess, a hard thing for Jason. He hasn't been able to reach those heights that he has due to injuries, due to lessening his minutes, trying to find that rhythm as he's gotten older and that quality that he displayed a long time ago. But, you mentioned Daly Chair Evans. What a freak of nature he is, mate. Honestly, he's world class. And we already know that. He's world class. We already know that. But like you said, that 10-year deal, it's actually saved Mashwee Manly money because... Man, he could be asking for anything these days and he'd literally get it, but they've locked him in. They've locked him in. Right. And like the way he's playing, Goran, and the forward pack that he has and the excitement that they play with and the energy he plays with, man, I feel like he's going to go around again. And man, if he does, alongside those other two up in Brisbane, like I feel like they've gotten more youthful as they've gotten older, and the way they see the game, I guess, as you get older is a lot different. The things slow down around you, but you see things a lot clearer. And then you've got a lot of young fellas around you that you can actually guide around the field and put them into position to help you be the best you can every single week. Plus, they make you feel young. So I think those older guys are doing a great job. And those 10-year contracts, 1 and 3 at the moment, you'd say. I think Tino's the person that's got the 10-year contract. Yep. He's had an ACL, yet to see him kick on. I think he's going to be another success in those 10-year contracts. But Daly has definitely been the man for me when it comes to those contracts that stood out the most.
Speaking of contracts and the salary cap, so you've got Dylan Brown on 1.3, you've got Kalen Ponga on 1.4. That is a lot of the night's salary cap used up on just 2 players. With your salary cap experience,
which is 0. What is the salary cap?
Oh, I'm not too sure. It could be this bright orange one right here. That's a cap. What does that do? What kind of pressure does that apply to the Knights roster and what they can do with the remainder of it? Because look, you've got some pretty big name players outside of those 2, Bradman, Best and the like.
Yeah.
What kind of pressure does it put on recruitment when you've got so heavily invested 2 guys?
Well, luckily I don't look after salary cap because You're
would the Knights be in trouble if you weren't?
You're absolutely right, Goran. I definitely put stress on the cap for sure, because now you have to actually recruit smarter. You know what I mean? So I guess when you have a team, the hardest positions and to have the best players is obviously your spine, is to lock in your spine, and on the back of that, you have to find a balance between, I guess, 200 gamers, 250 gamers, 150, some young guys coming through, and that money of what you have left has to spread over those guys. I don't know how it all works, but I think there definitely is going to be some stress on the cap for sure. Like, there's no doubt. But I think, I guess with the Newcastle Knights, they've said that they're a development club and they want to develop within the Hunter region. And I guess the important thing for development clubs, which means giving opportunities to your local kids, That's the whole point of being a development club, is to create opportunities for your younger development players that live in the Newcastle, the Hunter region, to come through your pathways, to be able to train alongside some of these big superstars, to get the knowledge of these guys, but also get the great coaching that they can get. So that, again, if I'm being, it's pretty obvious, you shouldn't have to pay your local boys too much money, but you're going to have to at some point, because other clubs are coming and play the game as well. So there's always going to be people picking out in your own backyard. It's how you, I guess, shape what you want the organisation to represent. And I think if it's a development club, then you're developing within. You got your marquee signings, which is your big dogs who are on all this money. And in between there, you're going to have to try and spread your cap out to try and make sure everyone's happy. Make sure everyone's getting a job done.
Which could be hard, right? Because you look around the dressing room and you got these two rock stars on massive coin, and then
superstars.
By comparison, you're,
Different,
rubbing pennies together. By comparison.
Different positions, different abilities. And there's no doubt, Goran, everyone's under pressure when it comes to salary cap. There's no doubt. And it's the way you manage it from your lower grades right through to the first graders. The best clubs that do it really well. And I'm guessing someone like Penrith and the Melbourne Storm, that are always consistent at the top, are rather than spending big money, are looking to grow within, but also create a culture that people want to be a part of, rather than go for the money. And most probably an example could be, and I don't know how much Isaiah Papali'i got, but an opportunity for Isaiah to go there, maybe for less money that he was on at the West Tigers, but for an opportunity to be in a system where you're going to grow as a player and chase premierships. And I think sometimes that's the opportunities that these superstars can create. It creates opportunities for people to come there because they see these guys and what they can give. And the club has created a culture and a system that actually fits to the players that want to come to the place, i.e., obviously Melbourne Storm, Penrith Panthers.
Yeah, it's almost like taking a step forward so you can take a step back rather, so you can take a couple of steps forward. The last thing I want to say about Dylan Brown before we move on and talk about what could be a really fascinating night at Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart, Manly Seagulls up against the Warriors. Did you get value for money with Dylan Brown? Because when you keep in mind what he's achieved in the game, right? He's a guy who has played in a grand final, hasn't won one. And then I think to myself, somebody like Nathan Cleary, what on earth must he be worth, given that he has been the guy behind Penrith Panthers' success over the last 5 years. And he's won those 4 premierships. Like I don't know if I could say comfortably that Dylan Brown is worthy of that kind of figure, given what he hasn't achieved in the game, if you get my drift.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And a lot of people most probably say the same thing, Goran, because when you compare the best halves in the game, say he's going as a 7, you compare the best halves, Nathan Cleary is the number 1. And I'm guessing Jerome Hughes is quite close to being second. And if you think about who's next, then does Dylan come into those conversations? I don't know. Does he demand that much money? Well, the market shows that he does. But is he at that potential yet? No, I don't think he is either. But I think it's the long-run vision for where, I guess, a club wants to go to, that they invest in these players. I think that's how I see it, is that they invest in a player for long-term success. And then, like I said earlier in this conversation, is in 2 years' time, the halves are going to be a small minority in the competition, because there is not many behind Ben Hunt, Daly Cherry Evans, and Adam Reynolds. Yeah. So who is next besides Cleary at the Penrith Panthers? So there's going to be a shopping spree waiting to try and find the next half. I think Newcastle got in at the right time. I think they've got a steal here, but I think it's the whole. Yeah, I don't think most probably at the moment he's showing that he's worth that much. But I think long term, when you think long term in the future, 25, he's got more time on his hand. He's secured himself. He put him around some good people, some good coaching staff. We don't know where he ends up going, but you would only think and hope that it just goes up.
Well, I don't think and hope. I hope that it goes backwards and
Oh,
down
that's
for
not
you
nice.
guys. Nah, well, look, mate, he's leaving my favourite team. Like, I've got all the jerseys on the wall and stuff. Come on, man. Like,
I'm
part of me. I'm a Kiwi. Of course, I want him to do well, but he's leaving the Eels, so the other half of me wants him to crash and burn.
You know what I think, Goran. I think I'm proud of like Kiwi players in our game. I'm proud of Kiwi players, Pacific as well, and Maori players, and I hope they do whatever it takes to do as well as they can in this game and to be recognised. And what I love more about Dylan is that he's come from a small town back home called Whangarei, where it's hard. It's hard. And you've got to get out of there to nearly try and make it. And he's put himself on the map. Whangarei, no Dylan Brown. Whangarei, no Fisher Harris. The North knows these boys. And what that does for those kids back home, Goran, it actually gives them an opportunity that they can say, well, if he can do it, why can't we? And I think he's a poster boy for all our young kids back in Whangarei, all our kids back in New Zealand. And I think he can be that person that is a role model and I guess someone that everyone looks up to. Because I know he goes home back to Whangarei a lot of times and he still hangs out with a lot of my family back there and they love him. And I think, keep being him, keep being you, because we are just putting ourselves on the map. And I love that about Dylan. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be doing great for our kids back home and our kids in Whangarei. And yes, there's going to be pressure, 100%. That's our game. The game comes with pressure. High-profile players come with pressure. Dollars come with pressure. And I just hope for him that he keeps, smashing it, kicking the front door down and going after every single moment now and in the future.
Yeah. Oh, well said, Blairy. Yeah. And I totally hear what you're saying. Small town boy. He's broken free and he's done good, man. He's done real good. But yeah, it still hurts that he's left my team.
I know.
It still hurts that
I
he's
can
left,
feel. I can actually feel it, Goran.
Yeah. But look, the good thing for us is that we've still got him for the rest of this season. You know, so like if he can sort of deaden down the outside noise and all the people saying, oh, you shouldn't be just bugger off, and put him in reserve grade, all that sort of stuff. If he can ignore all of that, just shut it down, and I'm sure we'll see some really good football out of him, especially when Mitch Moses comes back in round 6.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that has been almost, it's been killed off, hasn't it, Blairy? The idea, the notion that at some point in his career, he would come back and play for the New Zealand Warriors, because there's probably little or no chance that a 35, 36-year-old Dylan Brown is going to be considered a first-choice option for the New Zealand Warriors, and what will it be, 20, 30, whatever?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a shame to not have him playing for the Warriors at some point throughout his career. I tell you what, they would kill for him this weekend, because they've named the exact same team to take on the Manly Sea Eagles, and Manly, they were red hot in round 1. So you got one team going like that, and the other team in the Warriors dipping away in their round 1 performances. I don't like the look of this one. I think there are a couple of things that will probably get the Warriors up. The fact that they are at home, Friday night lights, the crowd will turn up, they'll be into it. First home match of the season, James Fisher-Harris is there, and there will be a really special moment at halftime where Tohu Harris is acknowledged for his efforts, 7 seasons with the New Zealand Warriors, and unfortunately, because of his body letting him down, betraying him if you like, he wasn't able to have a proper farewell in the end, and retired in the off season. So there will be some real emotion to this occasion, but when I look at that Manly Sea Eagles side, we've already mentioned Daly Cherry Evans. He's forming a really solid combination with Luke Brooks, who a lot of people had pigeonholed as just West Tigers nonsense, but he's proving that in a really good team, a good system, that he has what it takes. And you got all that pace in the outside backs. I'm scared for the New Zealand Warriors on Friday night, and I'm looking at this season similarly to what I'm looking at last season. You know, they started off with a disappointing defeat in their first round match against the Sharks, right? I think a lot of people thought that going into that first match of 2024, on the back of amazing form in 2023, that they'd roll the Sharks. Didn't happen. Put a lot of pressure on them in round 2 performance against Melbourne Storm. In Melbourne, you don't win there. They almost did. And all of a sudden, after 2 rounds, you've got no competition points. And you're so far on the back foot that, look, the season got away from them. They almost, I'm not saying that they lost it in the first 2 rounds, but gosh, they gave themselves a hell of a lot of work to do from that point. Now, after losing to the Raiders, a team that was touted for the wooden spoon by many, including myself, they've got huge pressure against the Seagulls, and I don't know if they can rise above it. How do you view this one, mate?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one, Goran. There's definitely going to be a bounce back from the Warriors, but is they going to be good enough to beat this red hot Manly side? I think there's definitely a chance to be battling it out for the top 4 with the squad that they have, with the way that Cherry Evans is playing and has played for the last few years anyway, and Trbojevic looking the best he has and the running the way he has and being involved in everything. It's going to be a big ask for the Warriors at home. And yes, there's a couple of big occasions. Obviously, Tohu Harris, who's been a big part of that club, who's done so much good things for the game of rugby league in New Zealand for the Warriors, and also at the Melbourne Storm, where he just created a legacy that is a resume that he's done so much and had so much success through. Which is a nice gesture, I think, from the Warriors to be able to do. But let's put all the good gestures aside. At the end of the day,
tell us what's going to happen.
At the end of the day, it's a rugby league game, and they need to win. They need to win at Go Media Stadium. They need to put in a performance that was better than the Canberras, which I think they will. Will it be good enough to beat the Seagulls? I don't think so, Goran. I think. You look at their middle forwards with Paseka through the middle of the pack, Josh Aloy. You know, the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, Goran, and I know you would have saw the team list, Jazz Tavanga.
Yes.
Honestly,
yes.
man, he will be chomping at the bit to play in this game, just chomping at the bit to get one up over his good old mates at the Warriors. And I thought he was solid. And I think he put those big boys around him anyway. Growing, he goes to another level. You got Jake through the middle of the park, and I feel like between those two, they are just like a dog to a bone anyway. They've got Homoli out wide, who's just devastating at the best of times, and this guy is smashing players left, right and centre. And then on the back of him, you got Daly, who always goes to him because he's a strike player. But I just think it's going to be a hard task for the Warriors at home with the way, I guess, looking back to their round 1 performance. Yes, it's going to be a bounce back, but I think the Seagulls side is a team to be watched through the season for sure.
Yeah, can't wait to see Jazz back. We spoke earlier about Dylan Brown and getting ready for a reception of sorts at CommBank against the Tigers. And I think Jazz will really relish the environment on Friday night. And if he gets a few boos or whatever, it'll help him perform a bit better, right?
It'll actually fire him up. So
it'll motivate him.
So I think the smart thing for the Warriors fans is to most probably celebrate him. He might get in his head and he might take it the wrong way. I think it's that reverse psychology, Goran, is you celebrate Jazz's return, because if you boo him and you put up and you say things about him, he's only going to go the other way. And I'm excited for this one. I know when I had Jazz in the Māori All-Stars team, there was one game he had penciled in this year to make sure that he was playing, whether he was playing off the bench or at 9. He just wanted to be involved in this game, and I'm looking forward to watching him go out there. I love Jazz and what he brings, but I also, want to see, I guess, a big bounce back from the Warriors. Whether they get the job done, I guess the most important thing is they're better than round 1. But at the same time, you don't want to be 0-2 to start the competition. It's hard coming off the bottom when you haven't started really well. So tough game at home. I'm sure the fans will get around it. Everyone's going to be back there to celebrate Tohu Harris, which I think is a great gesture from the club, and it'll be a big one at Go Media Stadium.
Yeah, it will be. And lastly on this game, I think the thing that gives the Sea Eagles the edge, it's that man again, the man on the 10-year deal, DCE. And, how many times have we seen it where, his expertise and his courage allows him to do what others would deem to be outrageous things. Things like kicking on the second or third tackle to turn the team around, just like, and we've seen him do that against the Warriors before. I remember a couple of years ago where, was it Jason Saab burnt Ken Mamalo in exactly the same fashion, right? So it's that kind of intelligence that worries me a lot. Yeah, the Warriors will try and bash through the middle. Probably James Fisher-Harris and Mitch Barnett will have improved performances. I think you can guarantee that. But it is the smarts of Daly Cherry-Evans and unleashing that very potent backline that scares the life out of me. And so that's why I just can't go away from the Manly Sea Eagles.
Well, he does that same thing in Origin, Goran. He kicks them out of trouble. He's got great awareness, great understanding of the game of rugby league. And like I said earlier, I feel like everything's slowing down for him, but his mind just gets what's going on. So, that the other person too we've got to say is Tofu Sipley. Mate,
yeah.
Every time he plays the Warriors, these guys have played for the Warriors.
Mate.
They just go another gear. So excited for all those guys to go back there and go after it. But what a game this one's going to be.
Yeah. Leads us nicely into Betcha This Happens for round 2. Last week came awfully close to ripping into that multi.
Didn't you?
Yeah, 5 of the 6 games came through, but I didn't get the result with the Rabbitohs and the Dolphins. So, unfortunately, we go again. This is the beauty of the NRL, mate. We get to go all season long. And so this time around, let's rip through the first few games and focus on the last 3, if you like, Blairy. Knights and the Dolphins. I've got your Knights tipping up the Dolphins, keeping in mind that the Dolphins don't travel so well, and they proved that last week, right? So, locking in the Knights for that one. Sea Eagles and the Warriors, it's obvious, given what we've just spoken about. Manly for me. Panthers by how many over the Roosters? That's going to be a flogging, I think.
Cricket score, you reckon?
Yeah, cricket score, easy. And probably Nathan Cleary getting a rest with about 30 minutes to go or something like that. A la Jerome Hughes.
Jerome Hughes like.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. I really shouldn't laugh. But
hey,
part of me was like just laughing, man. Like Jerome Hughes just chilling out on the sideline.
It is what it is.
Oh God, Dragons over the Rabbits. I've got.
Ooh.
I reckon. Yeah, Dragons to do it, and Sharks to continue their convincing start to the season. I know that they were edged by the Panthers in round 1, but they showed me enough that. I should lock them in against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys were pitiful. Cool. So let's talk Broncos and Raiders, Blairy, because I think we're about to find out how good that round 1 performance was from the Raiders and the Warriors when they come up against the Broncos, the men in green.
It definitely is going to be fireworks, I reckon. Two young, enthusiastic packs going after. And I'm calling Joseph Tapine, Josh Papali'i young as well. They're
really?
they're old bulls, but at heart they're young fellas. And
okay.
I think the only way you match the Broncos is exactly the way that they played against the Warriors, is go after the middle of the pack, because the momentum through Patrick Carrigan, Payne Haas, and then when they can get the ball out wide to their back rowers, and then their bench comes on Xavier Willison, who's a big man as well. And they've got some workers all through their team. You give the likes of Ben Hunt, the old guys, Adam Reynolds, some space and time, which they like to play off the back of those young forwards. They'll play the way that they played in their last game. But I think the best way for the Canberra Raiders is to go after the middle of the pack and slow down those fit, athletic middles that they have. So I'm going to stay strong here with the Broncos, because I did say the Broncos will be top of the ladder at the end of the season. I liked the way that they played. I love the style of football, and I also like the two old guys leading them around out wide. And I think they'll be too, I guess, mobile for the Canberra Raiders team. I know the Canberra Raiders team will come out of the blocks. Most definitely, they'll come out of the blocks and try and stop that momentum. But I just think with the smarts of those two older guys leading them around, I think they'll get them out wide, and they'll understand that the Canberra Raiders will try and come through them. I think they might try and play to their back rows a lot more, the Brisbane Broncos, and make those big middles make tackles. So Broncos for me are going to be the ones.
Yeah, and Broncos for me as well. I don't see it going any other way. Tigers and the Eels. For the second week in a row, I'm going against the Eels in this multi. And I think I've already outlined the reasons why. The Eels are... They're not up to much without Mitchell Moses. That's just the way I see it. Yep, they've got a couple of guys coming back. I see Sean Lane is in the back row, and he's a big body, but he's been well down on his best form. Like I think back to the grand final year, and he was really exceptional. But his best form has eluded him recently. Dylan Brown, he'll be under a cloud, let's say. And the Tigers have had success against the Eels recently. I know that in the Spoon Bowl last year, the Eels blew them out of the bowl, I suppose. Yep. But I don't see it happening again. And with the Tigers, they've got Jareem Buller coming back into the fullback position. They get their skipper back in Apasai Korosau, and combining with Jerome Luai for the first time, and Lockie Galvin. Terrell May was a beast, mate. I don't know why he was let go, but I'm so glad that Benji picked up Mr. May because he just proved to everybody why he is he could be the next big thing, right? And so I just think there's so much upswing in this Tigers squad, and they pushed your Knights quite a bit in round one. So I'm going against the Eels, man.
Oh yeah, okay. I definitely think the Tigers are going to be better with Uppy around that 9. I think and I think that's where they'll get the Parramatta Eels. I think they'll have obviously May.
It's just pace and deception, eh?
The May around the middle. Twel's doing a great job. Whanua Pule, who plays as well. I think having Uppy around that ruck will only create more opportunities for the middle of the park for Galvin and the boys out wide, Jerome, to be able to play their shape. And I think he's a big key to that West Tigers team this year. And I think having him out there is only going to help those middle players be better, be stronger, be more physical, be more creative around the middle of the park. And I think they'll just be too crafty. I think he'll be too crafty around the middle of the park. The Parramatta Eels will try and bounce back. They score 18 points in the second half against the
Melbourne
Storm.
Who cares if you win the second half when you lost the first half by 40?
Yeah, again, if there was no half time, maybe Melbourne puts 70 or 80 on Parramatta.
Probably.
At that time, the way they were running, and they bombed a sitter when they went through and didn't pass the ball, Pappy. But anyways, we don't have to go there. But I just think, Uppy is going to be a huge difference to that middle of the park for them, and they'll be too strong through there, and they'll play a style of football that will, it just suits. It's Benji Marshall style of football. They move the ball a bit, they make the big middles of Parramatta work, and they'll try and come out of the box Parra, but I don't think they're going to be able to last with Uppy around the middle of the park. So I'm sorry, Goran. It's the West Tigers.
Don't apologise, mate. I've already made my bet. I'm sleeping in it, and I've got the Tigers to beat the Eels at Combank. Bankwest, or whatever they're calling it these days. And last match of round 2, betcha this happens, Titans and the Bulldogs. Bulldogs, pretty impressive before kind of taking the foot off the gas and almost allowing the Dragons back in. I'm wondering whether the Titans are a thing here. And look, Kieran Foran is one of my favourites. He's out for a long time. Hopefully we see him at some point in season 2025. But how the Titans are able to make up for his absence. AJ Brimson in the 6, Campbell in the 7, that is lightning quick. And then it gets even faster on the outsides as well, like Keanu Kinney. You've got Alofi Khan Pereira. You've got BK as well.
Philip Sami,
Oh my God, man! They have
Jojo Fafita.
Geez, they are lightning quick everywhere. You know, 1
definitely.
through 7, and then you factor in Regan Campbell-Gillard, his first hit out for the Titans. You got Tino coming back after a lengthy absence. Mo Fotuaika up front as well. I reckon the Titans are good here, man.
I'm excited. I really like the outside backs of the Titans, and I like the style of the way they back themselves and play. Brian Kelly is most probably the one for me that creates things out of nothing purely because he challenges everyone every time he carries a ball. He's got an offload in him. He's aggressive when he needs to be. But on the outside of those guys, outside their centres, Alofi Kamperera and Jojo Fafita are some of the fastest players in the game. And you give them an inch, they'll take it.
They will take a mile, man.
So we haven't seen the Gold Coast Titans yet to play. I'm really looking forward, obviously, my close connection with Keanu Kinney and obviously Foran being on the sidelines. But they've got they've got their captain back on the field, and I really want to see him go out there and actually enjoy the game of rugby league, because it can be taken away from you pretty quickly. And I think he's a big part of that Gold Coast Titans team. And if they can create any momentum through those guys, Mo Fotuaika, those outside backs will have a field day. And I'm just gonna back them purely. I think because I just like the style, what they do. Those fast back five of theirs. AJ Brimson on the ball. Yeah, I think this could be an upset from the Gold Coast Titans for their first game. And although I enjoyed watching the Bulldogs, and they're a tough team and they work together, we can't always be straight down the line, can we, Goran? You've got to chuck it out there sometime and have a crack in life. So I'm thinking, for me, more so that the pure enjoyment that I get to watch these outside backs go to work is what I want to see. So I think Gold Coast Titans might get a little sneaky win here. Start their competition off.
Yeah. Oh, that is our multi done for Betcha This Happens in round 2. And I think that is us done for EP 3 Season 2 of League of Our Own, Blairy. Awesome stuff. Congratulations on your first up win over the Tigers with the Knights, and an even bigger congrats on landing the big fish of dill bags, or money bags as we'll call them now. Yeah, money bags for next season. And
coffee's on him.
Yeah, coffee's on him, mate. You need to come good on your promise of 2 weeks ago.
We got to get him on now.
Got to get him on the podcast, right?
We'll
I don't know
definitely
how
get him
that's
on
going to
the
go
potty.
for me, but look, I'll put on a brave
Well,
face.
I'm sure we have a lot of questions to ask. Bit like our potty tonight is, there was a lot of questions about Dills, and man, it's always great, Goran. It's always great to chat rugby league, and whether it's the Wars, the Warriors, or rugby league in general, or our Kiwi players, for example, Dylan. I think it's always great to chat with you, and you've got a lot of knowledge in the game.
I've got a few things rattling around this old head of mine, mate. As always, great to see you, man. Great to chat, and we'll do it all again same time next week, eh? Good on you, Blairy.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Bella.